Alright, hello and welcome to Ben's OP Game Show, recorded live at 3 p.m. Pacific Time every Friday, right here, twitch.tv/thegamefanatics. And this week, I moved around everything. I'm in this new space. Same space, technically. I got another computer here, same computer I had before. Got my other monitor here. It's all high tech. It's very fancy. I got the mic arm. I got the poster of Tally, which chops off her head. There's actually that's the top of the poster. There's no more above that. It just slices her head off. It's very strange. Production error, I'm sure. Anyway, on this week's show, I'm going to be talking about Breath of the Wild. Finally kind of finished it, I guess you could say. And we'll get into that, I guess, right now. So, Breath of the Wild. I think I should have to start off positively, because otherwise I'm going to have a lot of nitpicks and it's going to come off much more negative than I want it to. Okay, so the game is incredible. It is probably one of the best games ever made. It's so much fun. It does exploration very, very well, which we'll get into in a minute. And it's one of those games that in 10 years we'll be talking about still. In the same way, we'll talk about Portal or Half-Life 2 or Dark Souls or BioShock, and we're still talking about them today. This is going to be one of those games, and perhaps even more influential along the lines of Ocarina or Mario 64. This is a very important game. Yes, this game is the tits. That's not even an exaggeration. The game is incredible, and what it accomplishes is enormously impressive. It's almost unfathomable. Like, to play a game for 100 hours. I played over 110 hours of the game, and I'll get over my stats in a second, but to have the majority of that time be fun, to have this map that's so large that it took that long to explore, and have it still be fun at that length of time, and to still hold secrets and things over the next hill that are enticing, like, that's amazing. There's every single moment of exploring this open world was a joy to me. That, I think, is the best part of it, is seeing the hill. It's not that you can see every hill you can see to you can go to. It's not that. It's seeing something on in distance. Like, let me see if I can find something here. Anything. You'll see any little plateau or a tower in the corner, anything at all, and you'll want to go to it, and you'll feel rewarded for going to it. And not even rewarded in like you'll get items or money, or just, it's the experience, it's the journey, it's being in the Breath of the Wild that is the game, and it is so much fun to explore. It really does that well, better than any other 3D Zelda game. It has that open world, it has the puzzles along the way that are perfect. The little Korok seeds perfectly encapsulate what 2D puzzles in previous Zelda games used to feel like. This, it does so well, and having things like this happen where you're attacked by a bunch of keys, such a great job. It's almost, there are no words for it. It does everything in the world, in the open world, so well. I mean, I told this story forever ago, but it's where I found a beach, and I just followed the beach for half an hour, and I'm seeing these different enemies, and they're doing different things. I'm like, okay, what do I do on here? And you're solving, like, well, what's this? Okay, I'm gonna take a picture of this, and I'm gonna put this note on my map to explore. And you're looking up. I'm then on the beach, right? And then there's this rock thing that goes above me, and I'm going into it, not like a cave, but just a thing on the beach. And I'm, oh, there's rocks up there. Let me shoot a bomb arrow and blow up that and get the minerals that were, or the gemstones that were in the rocks up there. And I keep going, and I turn the corner, and there's a jungle. And I'm like, I didn't expect to see a jungle right here, right next to this beach. And I think, oh, okay, there's a tower right here. I saw it, I marked it on my map before. Let me go and see, like, let me just go to that tower, right? And it took me an hour of exploring just to get to that tower. I accomplished nothing, right? I didn't do anything there. But it was so incredible seeing sites like these weird giant mushroom things. There's so much of that. Every single area of the game is filled with stuff like that. It really is, and it's so much fun to see. All right, let me see it. Trying it out for the Wii U. wanted it to be since it was created. That is a very good point. This is, and I'll get into kind of series staples and like complaints I have with it, but as an open world, as an exploration type of game, like you got to think about it. The first Legend of Zelda really is kind of the first open world game, and this very much is that spirit taken to 11 and gone crazy. And I wouldn't even, there are some games where I'd say that the overworld's too big or it's not fun to traverse. This, despite being enormously large, is always fun to explore. It has those little puzzles along the way. It has moments like this where I'm just climbing a mushroom rock, and that's fun. Like, how is that still fun in the same way of everything else? And it does have those secrets along the way, like the original Zelda had, or even Zelda 2 or Link to the Past, or any of them. It does that so well, and it has them in spades. It has all these secrets. It has all these alcoves. It has the adventure spirit that so few games have. That really, I guess the closest thing I could say to it is something like Minecraft, where you find a cave and you just go into a cave, and you're like, I guess I'm exploring now, and you go into it and you have this adventure. And that's what Breath of the Wild is. I think the adventure they craft with the story and some of the dungeons and some of that isn't as strong as just, I went this way. Did you go that way? No, I didn't. I found this thing. That's crazy. Or like, that's what it is. It's those moments that can only happen from creating this world and letting you loose in it. And that's the fun of the game. And it is so much fun. I wouldn't have, even with my dumb complaints, which I'll get to, I wouldn't have played 110 hours of this game if I didn't like it. It's the same kind of thing I complain about Skyrim for not having a great combat system, or the level up perks are garbage, and like the health system's weird too. I'm not a big fan of that, but I played the game for 100 hours, so I did enjoy it. It is a good game. I did get to explore and do that, but this does everything so much better. It doesn't get in its own way. It has the space, right? Like, if this was a lesser game, let's just to harp on Skyrim, there would be combat encounters everywhere. You'd be constantly, oh, there's a wolf fighting me, or there's this fighting me, and you couldn't run away, and it'd be super annoying. This just lets you explore. It lets you be in the world and to see it, and it does it so well where it's its own reward. You get to the top of the hill, and maybe there's a Korok seed, and maybe there's nothing, right? And you just look around, and you go, I want to see what that is. What's that over there? You look at your map, and you go, I don't think I've been there. I want to be there. I want to go there. There are so many just random fields in this game that are incredibly interesting and entirely optional. There's nothing there. There's literally nothing there. There may be an enemy or two. There's some trees. But there's no reason for you to go there, but you go there and you experience it and you see the world. This is backpacking in Europe, in Hyrule, the game. That's what it is. You're just on this adventure and you go forth with it. I don't know any other positive, crazy hyperbole I could say with it. That's incredible. And I think it's at that point that I have to transition into the not so great parts of it. Let me get some of my stats out of the way, actually. So over 110 hours, the Switch doesn't really explain hours very well, so who knows. I did all 120 shrines. I got 367 Korok seeds, which is almost halfway. I did, according to the game, it tells you at the end, I did about half the side quests, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I got, the clear percentage when I beat the game was 55.08%, which is pretty good, I think, considering 72% of the total is Korok seeds. I'm not doing all that. And you don't need to do all that even to unlock everything. Anyway, I guess let's start with the side quests, right? Because that kind of starts with the problems. The side quests are interesting. Some of them are pretty fun. Some of them tell interesting stories. Most of them are kind of throwaway. and unnecessary, and they don't offer any reward. I don't know if you'll see it in this video, but for the vast majority of the game, maybe the last 60 plus hours of my playtime, I had not thousands of rupees, tens of thousands of rupees. And at the very end of the game, I sold a bunch of my amber and gems. I had 70 grand in rupees, so I don't need rupees. So these quest rewards are meaningless. There's no reason to do this quest other than to do it, which is fine. And I understand, like, oh, maybe I want to help this person, not just because it's fun. It's fun to check off that box, right? And I don't disparage that. But there's no reason. There's no even minimal reason, like, oh, here's 100 rupees. I'm like, man, I will throw away 100 rupees. I am rich as fuck in this game. I don't need your rupees. And when the vast majority of the quests feel fetchy and just kind of, oh, did you find, take a picture of this over here, and then take a picture of this over here, and come back to me. And I'm like, all right, fine. And you do it, and then like, oh, here's 100 rupees. Here's 300 rupees. I'm like, great. That took me half an hour. I get nothing for it. It's not even like I learned a bit of lore or something about the world. It's just these people, they were looking for skeletons, and I took a picture. And I think that's a problem to me. Like, why all these side quests are meaningless. You go in Ocarina of Time, you go to Kakariko Village, and you find that oh, I want all my Kukos, they're run away. Okay, I'll help you, fine. And you get a bottle, right? Like, oh, this is something. What does this bottle do? Oh, let me see. Oh, I can catch things with it. Oh, that's really cool. And you start having quests like that where they give you not even necessarily an item, but something tangible as a result that you feel rewarded by, instead of this pittance. And I won't even bring up Majora's Mask, which is an entire game of great side quests with story implications and these characters that people love. There's nothing in this game like that. Not even close. These quests, besides the shrine quests, there's no reason to do any of them. There's 2 quests that get you the snow boots and the sand boots. Those are useful. Those you should definitely do. Those have tangible results. You're able to run in snow or sand like normal instead of being slowed down. Fine. You're running a lot in this game. That makes sense. But everything else doesn't have a reward. Doesn't have any reason for you to do it. And that gets into one of my bigger complaints with the game, is by removing pieces of heart and things like quivers or bomb bag upgrades, even wallet upgrades, which I always hated. Don't go back and do wallet upgrades, but the quiver upgrades maybe. But things like that, upgrades, things that you find in the world, something like, oh, I wonder if I shoot this with my bow, it starts a mini game, and then I shoot it again, I'm scoring points, and if I get enough points, I get a better quiver. There are things like that in this game. They don't give you anything. Like, there's a man who challenges you to a foot race. If you beat him in the foot race, you get nothing. I think he gave me money. That's not a reward, man. Like, I'm used to exploring and finding a weird cave and finding a piece of heart in it. And I'm not expecting every cave to find a piece of heart, right? I'm expecting there to be a reward for any of the things I'm doing. And because of this whole idea of, like, I'm only looking for Korok seeds. I'm only looking for shrines. And after that, there's nothing to find. There's nothing I need to be looking for at all. At all. There's nothing there. I don't know, what was it, 30 something hours into the game, I stopped fighting enemies. For several reasons. The equipment degradation makes fighting not fun. I do enjoy it. I'm fine with the equipment breaking. I don't mind that. But I'd fight these enemies, right? And they have a little skull base, and you fight them, and you'll break a weapon or two, and you'll pick up a weapon or two. It's a net neutral. Like, it's not positive, it's not negative. You'll end up probably with the same amount of weapons as you had when you came in, right? Maybe you'll lose some health and whatever. And you'll get a chest at the end that opens up after you've defeated all the enemies in the area. And inside the chest will either be a weapon that you're going to have to scrounge around in your inventory to make space for, or a weapon that's terrible, so you don't want it. or a gem that you already have hundreds of, or money, which you don't need for anything. You don't need money. You're going to find enough. You can sell a bunch, as long as you're playing the game kind of normally, you'll find enough gemstones to be pretty damn rich. I mean, I threw 10 grand at the fairy who revives your horse, never once used her to revive any horses. None of my horses died. Anyway, I just threw the money. I was like, I don't have anything else to do with this money. Take it. Just take the money, fairy. I don't care. And that's not a good economy. And I guess back to the other point, I ran by all these combat encounters because I knew for a fact every single time I found a skull on the map with a bunch of enemies surrounding it, or their weird treehouse for structures. Every single time I found one of those, I knew 100% for certain there was no reward there. There was going to be nothing there that gave me anything worthwhile at all. Nothing. Any reward I got from that, not substantial at all. Oh, I got a better sword. I didn't need a better sword anymore. I've got enough swords, right? Stuff like this, these talus, or the Hinoxes or whatever, I'll fight them because I think it's fun to fight them. I think a lot of like the Hinox fights I've had, or the giant skeleton, whatever, I forget what they're called. A lot of those fights are better than a lot of the bosses in the game, which I guess I'll also get to. But these give me rewards. This guy gives me a ton of money, and as much as I said I don't need money, it is fun to kill him and to get all his money. Fine with that. Because there's a bunch of rewards for that. The Hinox has a bunch of weapons, and it also feels like I'm checking something off on the map. You know, this guy is named, he's got a health bar, it says where he's from, there is some kind of thing for beating all of them or beating a lot of them that I forgot to look into before I did this, but whatever. It's more rewarding than those random encounters you'll find because there's no reason to it. Any single chest I see in the world, every single one, none of them have a bottle in them, a quiver upgrade, a piece of heart, a stamina upgrade, a piece of equipment. None of them do. None of them do. The very rare case you'll find a shield that's cool in one. The shrines will give you weapons or armor. Those are very rare. There's no reason to, like, oh, there's treasure chests everywhere. They're filled with garbage. They're straight up filled with garbage. You play this game for 30 hours and you fight pretty much everything, you're done. By that time, you're done. You don't need to fight anything else. You have enough crafting materials. Not that you even need to be crafting that much. Not that you even need to be making potions all that much either, because I really didn't. Every once in a while, I'd stop and I'd make 3 or 4 health things that were full recovery plus 3 hearts, and I was like, done. I made 3 of those. I don't really need to do more. Because there's a problem with the combat in that every single thing wants to just beat your ass for no reason. The combat isn't that great. It's very loose and weird, and because of the item degradation, it doesn't quite flow right for me. You can do the little quick dodge and you do the flurry attack or whatever, and you'll do it, and it works well, and you're doing a ton of damage, and then a guy will come out of nowhere and just hit you with a sword, 8 hearts. And like, motherfucker, that's a lot of hearts to just randomly hit me with. Especially considering when their moves are so weird and they're so animated in their animations, I don't even know what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, I have 23,000. You can't see it in the corner. I have 23,000 rupees in this video. So I didn't really get that. I do like the combat. I do like fighting the bosses or the Hinoxes or all those things much more than the moment-to-moment combat. I think at the beginning of the game, the combat's stronger because it doesn't have these random enemies that are like, oh, I have 7,000 HP. I'm like, well, I don't really care, though. Like, I don't really want to fight you because, again, there's no reason to. I'm not leveling up. It's not like if I kill 50 bokoblins, I earn some ability that makes me stronger against bokoblins or something. There's nothing like that. So there's no incentive to do it. And it became, as there was so much game to explore that I'm still enjoying the exploration, but I'm running away from everything because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of my time to do it, which is weird. And I also think having, I guess to go back to the healing potions and stuff, I think having the idea that you need to carry 12 potions with you to heal during a combat encounter or to climb better, I think says more about how broken the system is than anything else. If you need to carry a bunch of health packs around, your combat probably isn't optimized quite right. And I guess a better example would be BioShock. In BioShock, you can carry 9 health packs, and you can just activate them at any moment. So aim for that moment. So you'll be playing the game, and you'll get hit like 3 times, and you lose most of your health, and you just press a button to heal. I would rather not have any health pickups and have the health system make sense to where enemies aren't doing as much damage, or I have a regen that I'm hiding behind something, or anything, because the system of carrying 9 health packs around because you have to and because the game's designed around that, then give me 9 times as much HP, and there you go. Design your game around that, because it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for in BioShock for abilities to have some kind of cooldown. So I guess, stabbing yourself with the Eve hypo makes sense. But for health, it really is kind of goofy. And there's so many items in this game, pages and pages of materials that I don't think are really necessary. It's fine that they're there. They do a good job of not being like, you have carrying too many apples. Like, that never happens, so that's great. Like, that's really great. But I guess it's just not for me. I'm never a big crafting guy anyway, and I think not having the ability to this is the wrong mouse. Not having the ability to remember or just like quick use any of the meals you've made before kind of kills it for me in terms of like what I want to make. And you start to see a system here of like, I'm just going to pile a hearty whatever, an apple and a slab of meat. I'm going to get something pretty decent. I'm going to call it a day. I don't need to spend all this time on it. And they gave you so many of these little things that I don't know if they're really necessary. I have some notes written down here. Oh, horses are useless. Yeah, horses are pretty stupid. I probably spent 95, if not more, percent of my playtime not on a horse. I think I got my first horse like 40 something hours into the game. I didn't like how you get them. You have to sneak up on them or whatever and then sue them. Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's not explained very well. And then once you get them, they control very weird. It took me a while to understand, like, oh, I'm being dumb. And then there's a lot of areas in the game where horses aren't really gonna work too much for you. I think I enjoyed taking pictures of everything like a maniac more than I enjoyed horses in the entire game. And they kind of just get in the way. The fact that they can die, but do they even have health bars? I don't even know. It's such a weird thing to me. But they're there and they're fine, and I guess it works, and I guess people liked that. I don't know. It's not for me. The horses, not for me. I think you can run throughout the world, and I did just as easily, because the whistle doesn't magically make your horse come to you. It's still on the map somewhere. So if he's really far away, which he probably is, you're not gonna get him. You can't fast travel with your horse, so why? Like, I don't get it. It's kind of dumb and annoying to me. This is me. I think I got stuck on this puzzle, or I was solving the alternate thing. That's what I was doing. There's also the case, and this is the case with a lot of things in this game. The monsters that come out at night are incredibly annoying. It's so dark at night. Every single game seems to suffer from this problem at making nighttime so dark it's uninteresting. And it completely kills the art direction of this beautiful game. It's at night. I can't see anything. I'm being attacked by stupid skeletons that offer no rewards. They have trash weapons half the time. They're just there to be annoying. Or they randomly get you with a sniper shot, and it's like 10 hearts. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And in a world or in a game where your weapon has a number next to it, right? And it says it's 52 attack. And I can see an enemy, and I can see his HP, and I can hit him for 52 damage. I know that. 1-to-1 comparison there. But my defense is 25. And I have no idea what that means, right? No clue at all. Because I don't have numbers. I don't have a health bar up here. I don't have a health bar. I have hearts. I don't know what 25 defense does for 16 hearts. I don't know what that means. Okay, is each quarter of a heart 1 defense? I don't know what that means, so I can't prepare for anything. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not gonna fucking look it up, because that's ridiculous. I already talked about pieces of heart being missing. I think that's the biggest kind of issue I have with it, is as much as exploring is fun and it does so well, the missing pieces of heart really kill a lot of exploration. But in a way, it's a blessing, because if the world was this large and you still had to explore for pieces of heart, it could be annoying. Then there's the Korok seeds, so I don't know. They're kind of hedged their bets on that. I guess I should talk about shrines since I was just in one. I did all 120 shrines. There's probably about 20 combat shrines. I think there's too many combat shrines, especially towards the end of the game. It felt like I was doing like, this is a combat shrine, this is a combat shrine, this is a combat shrine. It's like, damn, there might even be more than 20. There might be 30 something combat shrines. There are a lot, and I like the combat in those shrines. There's just too many of them, and they all pretty much feel the same. Then there's also the issue of some of these shrines being really big and expansive, and those are synonyms. And so you'll be going around the world, or going around the shrine, and you're solving this puzzle, and then you're going to the next room and solving another puzzle, and then there's another puzzle, and then there's another puzzle. Like there's multi puzzles here, and that's awesome. And then you'll get into a shrine that is literally one room, and you go, oh, I wonder if I do this. Okay, you did it. All right, goodbye. And I'm like, wow, that's included in your 120? Like this 120 number easily is twice as many as it should be. And I think that's my biggest problem with it. It's not that there's too much to see or too much to do or whatever. It's that some of this stuff is just very forgettable. There are so many shrines. I could tell you about, even in a Zelda game I played once, well, Spirit Tracks. I could tell you the last dungeon, that's not the final dungeon, but the one before it, is the sand dungeon where you get the sand rod and you're raising sand to make weird platforms for yourself to walk on. Like, I could tell you parts about that, but about these shrines, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you much about a lot of them. I could tell you ones that annoyed me to get in. I could tell you about Eventide Island. I could tell you about the one that's really dark and you have to have a torch the whole time. Like, I could tell you about those, but there's 120 of them. Right? And I'm very proud of my picture. The 120 of them. And so many of them are just unnecessary and completely forgettable. And then we get to this beast right here, the divine beasts. I think I'll remember them overall because of what they were, but man, are they underwhelming. They don't have keys. They don't have a dungeon map like they do. It's this shitty Metroid Prime imitation map that doesn't work right, especially when you go to the final dungeon in the game. That's just this large map that you can barely navigate because you can't zoom in on it and you can't look at it at all. And it's flipping and rotating. It's ridiculous. But anyway, these divine beasts, despite the one novel thing they do and play with in each one, utterly forgettable. Just completely, like, these are maybe some of the worst Zelda dungeons, which is weird because some of the shrines are some of the best Zelda puzzle dungeons, and like the Korok seed stuff are great puzzles. So it's very strange to have some of the more forgettable moments in Zelda be surrounded by some of the more memorable ones. That I don't want to spoil any of the divine beasts, but man, is it really not? Calling them dungeons is not an insult to other games in the series, but it almost is. They're not as developed. They barely use your items at all. Maybe a couple puzzles here and there. You can kind of accidentally do a lot of the things, like the puzzle hinges on the one movement mechanic you get in each one. And they're really a missed opportunity, and I'm actually going to go into that in the next part of this, after I close out the review. Item upgrades, new abilities, they're not here. There's the limited upgrades you get with like the bombs and stuff, but there's nothing new to find in the field that's going to really take you higher. Even the little protections you get from people aren't that amazing. Like they're cool and they do some interesting things, but they don't change the gameplay enough. And I'll kind of go into that too. I don't mind that you get all the pieces, all the pieces of the gameplay puzzle early in the game. I don't mind that. It's just that nothing utilizes them. There are shrines that do, but the shrines are completely optional. Everything in this game is optional. I almost think that's to its detriment. Everything's so optional and just kind of shoved off to the side. None of it stands out as like, whoa, that's the Zelda moment. Going back to rescue your sister in Wind Waker in that prison outside island. I don't know. My memory is hazy. And having the moment where you're climbing the flooding tower and you fight the Hemlock Bird man. Awesome. Incredible moments like that don't exist at all. I know some people really like these guardian people, the 4 guardian, one of each tribe or whatever. I think I liked one of them. I didn't like any of the new characters really. They're not that interesting to me. I like Zelda and I like Link and I like the King, but everyone else doesn't do much for me. There's better iterations of them. Places like the Lost Woods are great, but Zora's Domain is not that exciting. It's like the least interesting Zora's Domain since Twilight Princess, which has a terrible Zora's Domain, and this one's better than that. But I mean, comparatively to a lot of towns and things in Zelda, no. This Kakariko Village, I will not remember this one very well. I will remember the one from A Link to the Past. I will remember the one from Ocarina of Time. I'll remember Outset Island, even, or Outlook Island, or whatever the fucking island. I won't remember what it's called, but I'll remember the island, right? And I think that's a problem overall, is that there's not that much memorable about these places. And as much as I love the game and kind of talk about the game being incredible and amazing and all this stuff, it does leave me with a little bit of like, really? Like, this isn't the Zelda. This isn't the amazing Zelda that I've known for 20 plus years. This is just okay-ish Zelda with some amazing stuff in it. So at times it is the best Zelda game, and at times it is just an okay Zelda game. And I guess the biggest thing with that is fixing the shrines and dungeons. And I've outlined a thing here that I want to go into in a second, to just kind of like how we can better improve these shrines, make them something much more memorable, make them a better part of this world. Maybe even out of this world. No? Not out of this world? No? Okay. We'll get into that in just a second. Let me get water. Okay. The computer's like, why are you making all this noise, computer? So let's talk about fixing the shrines and dungeons in Breath of the Wild, because I think there's a lot to be desired. I haven't heard very many people say they loved the dungeons. I've heard people say they loved the shrines. And I'm not going to necessarily disagree with that. I think there are too many shrines, and I think if we gave the game... we're going to change a lot of things here, right? I think if we gave the game 30 shrines, and we took the other 90 and we combined them all down into 8 discrete dungeons, we have something there. We combine them into these divine beasts that are no longer divine beasts, because that's a little contrived. But whatever. We make them into these 8 giant super dungeons made out of the puzzles that already exist in the game. They already made these puzzles. They already made a bunch of ones that are like, these are themed about wind. These are themed around fire. These are water ones. These are fire and water. Like, they're already kind of themed in their own way. And you could combine them all together into this dungeon experience that's just like this 3-hour dungeon puzzle with keys, and you're going different ways. And that's what I want to see. That's what I would like to have seen here, because they expanded the world and they made it so big, and then they filled it with little peppered bites, but never a full meal of the dungeons that you get in other Zelda games. And it's very disappointing to me that I didn't get a new classic dungeon from this game. I mean, along the lines of a spirit temple or a forest temple or any temple. There's nothing even close to that in this game. And I think reducing the map size a little bit to compensate for not having all those shrines everywhere, and having large land masses of the dungeons that you can go into from one direction, and not like the band or boy band or what, group boy thing. And it's all the shrine puzzles. And then there's the minor tests of strength. And they have the bosses at the end, which I forgot to talk about in my review. The bosses are forgettable too, but they're pretty cool. Overall, not super amazing. Anyway, here's what I have. I wrote out what I think we can fix these shrines. We can make them better. Okay, so there's 8 dungeons here. But we're going to section them off because 4 of them are the main dungeons. 4 of them are like the ones we have here, the divine beasts. Okay? And each of these 4 has an item to get inside. Now, the item is the blessing of the sage associated with that area, in the same way we have here, Daruk's protection, or whatever. He's the sage of that dungeon. Okay? And that's an item you'd get, just like in other Zelda games. You'd get it about halfway through the dungeon, and you'd use it throughout the rest of the dungeon. Now, where this changes is in the overworld. In this exploration, whatever, all of these powers, these 4 abilities you'd get in the dungeons, work exactly how they work in Breath of the Wild. Once you beat that dungeon, you unlock Daruk's protection. You have 3 like free hits in the overworld map before it has to recharge. In the dungeon itself, the powers are enhanced and they work kind of permanently in that dungeon. This is because, and we can write it into the fiction, this is because the sage's power is at its peak in the dungeon itself. So let me go here. So we have the lightning AoE attack, okay, which we know how that works. In the game, you charge up your slice to another level, and then it's just a giant lightning, everything in the area gets hit. Perfect, fine. That's how that would work in the overworld. In the dungeon, once you unlock it, now you have a super powerful attack. They can destroy certain walls, maybe bend metal in weird ways. You could hit kinetic objects that are like super large immediately without having to stasis them. Things like knocking down a tower and having it make a bridge, like a giant bridge. There's some interesting ideas you could do there. And this is my least interesting one out of the 4. Right? You could even use it to charge up machines in the area because it's electric attack, and do certain things with that it's now like a projectile, like a thunder rod in a way. I think that's an interesting way to break it down. But this only gets more important or more interesting from there. The flight one in the game allows you to hold the jump button and up in the air, and then you can glide around and do that. So that's very important. If I ever played the game again, I'd get that one first. Quite honestly, that one first. It's just great. In this dungeon, once you unlock it, now you can just jump and glide around. And all these puzzles and all these things you walked by at the beginning to get there, now you can jump over them and see these different paths and start going to where you need to go. Maybe you're climbing a tower and you couldn't get up the tower any further, so you had to go this other way. And then you get that ability, you get this blessing, and then you go up the rest of the tower. These are the things I'd want to see in a dungeon. These items that you get halfway through, and they don't go away. Like, you still get them in the overworld. They don't intrude on the game's reliance on having all the abilities from the start. You wouldn't need them in the other dungeons. And in fact, You could have some in-game fiction where it disables them. It disables all the other divine whatevers, sages, protection in the other dungeon, just for the sake of whatever. I'm fine with that. Because then we get to things like Daruk's protection with the shield. It's the only one I remember the name of because I can clearly hear him say it. It'd be in this volcano, right? And you're walking around all this lava and you can't get through this. There's this door that's just covered in lava, like a lava waterfall. And you'd get Daruk's protection. And in the dungeon, you'd be able to walk on lava, walk right through it, and have all these weird, interesting combat encounters where you're now swimming in lava and doing all these things you would never normally be able to do because of this blessing. And I think that, coupled with the idea that, oh, you have the ability to make ice pillars. You have the ability to stop objects. And now you can do things like, think about this, the molten rock. Like, you couldn't do anything with the molten rock. Maybe you could stop it and get out of the way. But now that you have the ability to touch it, you could freeze it, jump onto it, and now you won't take damage and climb around it. That's how you got around a puzzle, because you have that new ability only in the dungeon. Super, that's off the top of my head. There are so many great ideas to do with this, combined with the shrines that they already made puzzles for. And then we get to the last one, which revives you. The last spirit here revives you when you die. Now, in this, it would be a little different. When you'd fall in battle in this new version of the game, in the overworld, a doll Link would just like, and you'd still be alive. Like, it'd separate you off and you'd be okay, right? It'd be like the doll died. It took the fatal blow for you, and here you are. But in the dungeon, you'd be able to do that at will. So you could still die in the dungeon in kind of the same way you could, but you could just have your little Link doll, bloop it, have it press a switch, and you run over there. Kind of in the same way you can play Triforce Heroes in single player, and just move around your character, then move around the other one, and move around the other one. Those ideas work really well. They've been seen in Wind Waker, in the fucking tower that I never remember. I can't remember anything. I don't even know why I try to remember names of things. It's in Wind Waker, and it's in Twilight Princess. So it's the one dungeon where you climb up the tower, get a little guy, and then you guide him all the way back down. They've done this before, and it's worked super well, but they didn't even, they just completely forgo all of that. And I think it's to the game's detriment, because these simple, kind of like, I just spitball with these ideas, I wrote them down so I have them here. They all have incredible interplay with the main 4 abilities. It is 4, right? Bombs, stasis, ice, magnesis. Yeah, it's 4. They have things you can do with that. And they all go back into the overworld in the same way they did before, but they make the dungeons unique and special. And because they're larger, because we got rid of all the other extra superfluous shrines, there's something more there. It's so much more impactful. I'll remember these dungeons. I'll remember these hours-long treks in the same way I remembered finding the beach and then finding the jungle along the side of the beach. I'm not going to remember the dungeon. I'm not going to remember the elephant. I can barely remember. I'm like, what did you even do there? I guess you moved it, and like, okay, you moved its, you moved it around. I don't want to spoil anything, even though I guess anyone watching this. You moved its trunk around. And you solved like 2 or 3 puzzles with that, but is that really that great? That amazing? Did we really get anything there? Is that memorable? Is that a Zelda? Is that in the pantheon of Zelda moments? It's not even in the top 50, like, at all. It's just completely forgettable. And I think by removing the special item that each dungeon used to have, they lost identity. Because you can do them in any order, they didn't lose anything. It was the item. It was the item itself. And those 4 items you need to traverse the entire world. So I don't think we should get rid of them. But I think by adding temporary abilities that only work for that dungeon, but do still give you a limited boost help afterwards in the overworld, is a nice way to skirt around that. And I think could have made for a much better dungeon/shrine going experience in Breath of the Wild. Also, now I'm reading a book. So. Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-da-ba. Ow, Jesus. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of talk of how can you go back to other Zelda games? What did they do to surpass this Zelda game? And I think I've outlined kind of my top 5 ideas or ways to improve this, make this different, expand upon it, make it more like other Zelda games, make it less like other Zelda games, make it less like Breath of the Wild or more, into its little niche. So let's start off just right off the bat. Number 1, new abilities is what I think the game needs. And I don't even mean new abilities necessarily that were in the other games. I also mean that. Stuff like the iron boots would be an incredible thing. Being able to walk underwater with them and see an underwater world with the Zoras maybe would be really cool. And that is one area that's very lacking underwater. Probably because it caused problems. This footage is also from my very end of the game when I did everything, and this is after beating the game. Stuff like the hammer that maybe could be used for something. Having a dedicated hammer. These dedicated items I think are missing. There's also something completely new we could see. Being able to walk on lava with certain boots or with a certain item ability could open up the world. I think a smaller, more Metroidvania-y style world where there are things you can't get past necessarily maybe works for me, and that's definitely my playstyle. I am wearing a Metroid shirt. So maybe that's me. I almost hit my face on the mic. Also, I think these items, like if there were iron boots or a hammer or a super boomerang, they'd have to have their own slot in the inventory that you couldn't damage them, you couldn't break them, and maybe just make them weak then, where you only really use them for the one thing. Or if you want to use, like I started using the Master Sword all the time because it's like a cheap weapon, it'll last for a while and go away. Fine. Make it like that. It can't be something like, oh, there's boomerangs in this game. Yeah, I use them as melee weapons because using them as boomerangs never really was needed, and they broke right away, and there was plenty of things better than them. So, okay. And we'll get into new abilities and new items a little bit later because it takes another spot on the list. But number 2 is kind of quality of life improvements. I think fewer equipment types would go a long way. And what I mean by that is, by the end of this game, you have your winter gear, you have your it's really hot gear, you have your climbing gear, you have all this different gear, right? And it's just kind of a mess. And not only that, MMOs and a lot of games have had this forever, where you can pick the appearance of the item, but its abilities are of another item. And I think we can kind of circumvent that entire thing by doing a Dark Souls-ish style thing of you just have 2 ring slots that you can equip different abilities to. It's like, okay, I want to equip the resist heat ring, so I'm equipping that. And then I want to equip the one that makes me climb quickly. And you pause the game, you set that up, and then you back out. You don't have to put on new pants and a new shirt and all this garbage. It's kind of unnecessary. And then you can just have what you think looks cool as your armor, instead of having to be like, I guess I gotta wear this because I'm in the snow. I don't like that at all. I think upgrades need to be streamlined. It needs to, after you go see a fairy to upgrade something, it needs to kind of tell you on it, this is what you need to upgrade it. That just make things a little easier to do. It doesn't mean fewer items to upgrade it or anything like that. It just means, hey, put some stuff here so I don't have to remember everything or write it down or Google it. That's you can Google it is not a good excuse, in my opinion. Other things, it needs to be able to remember and auto remake meals that you've made before. Why isn't that a thing? There's also other stuff here. You should be able to craft arrows. You should be able to craft fire arrows. You should be able to craft lightning arrows. Whatever. All of this stuff you should be able to craft. You can also see in the corner my 70k rupees in this. I think that's a big improvement to me, and mainly with the equipment too. It's kind of a mess. And 3, my top five, more dungeons. I kind of talked about this in my last section here. The shrines are great and all, but they're so fragmented. Some of them are so short, they're just done and completely forgettable. Some of them are just straight up mini bosses. Some of them are long, meaty 20, 30 minute experiences that are great. Maybe not 20, 30 minutes, but you get what I'm saying. They're much better than the shorter ones. And if we just reduced the number of shrines here and made them into thoughtful, huge, like dungeons, if you played the game and you had 15 shrines in a row where you're solving these puzzles and there's keys to unlock things and you're getting maybe a new item or a new something that's fun, that is what I want to see. That is exactly what I want to see. They have all the components here because the shrines, by and large, are great. But they're so scattered all over, and it's just, I want the dungeon experience. And I never really got it because even the divine beasts are very lackluster. They're not great. I mean, I guess that's the only way I could describe it. I don't think the divine beasts are great. I wouldn't describe any of them as great. There were some great moments in them, but overall, forgettable. The boss is kind of forgettable. Forgettable is what I'd say about a lot of shrines too, because they're so short. Because there weren't, like, there's certain puzzles in these shrines where I'm like, I don't know what to do. But if I could leave and do other shrine puzzles and maybe come back and have a map that's not shitty garbage, I'd maybe remember it differently. I'd remember it better. I remember it more fondly. Instead of it being like, I don't know what this is. I guess I gotta brute force this thing. I don't know. I think that think about the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time. And what it has with the pose and how the world traverses and the hallway snapping around. Like, there's nothing even close to a moment like that. And that game's 20 years old. There's nothing even close to that in this game. There's nothing even close to the moment of in Wind Waker when you go back to Hyrule and it's in black and white and then all the color comes back and you have to fight everything. There's nothing even close to those moments. So while I also say more dungeons, let's include more story, amazing parts that you're a part of. Instead of seeing these flashbacks that are cool, but I'm so disconnected from them, they don't have any influence upon how I play the game or an action set piece moment. They're just and gone. And 4 on my list, make exploration thoughtful again with smart upgrades. And so the world's huge, right? And with this larger world, it doesn't make a lot of sense to lock away a bomb bag upgrade or a quiver upgrade, just as examples, in the far left corner of the map. It's so large, it could take you 50 hours to get over there. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that, to have them in specific locations. But instead, these shrines, or whatever, just places on the map, would unlock things in a specified pattern, regardless of where they are or which order you did them in. So, for example, you did your first shrine, it gave you a piece of heart. You did the next shrine, it gave you another piece of heart. You did this next one, and it gave you a stamina upgrade. Okay. And then you did another one, and it gave you a quiver upgrade, as an example. That, I think, is much more meaningful than the system they have here. And that order I gave would be the same regardless of what shrines you did and in whatever order. And going back to more impactful, how many times in this game did I go to someone and say, or go to the statue and be like, okay, give me a heart, Give me another heart container. Give me 3 heart containers and 1 stamina upgrade. It must have happened 3-4 times that I did that because I kept hoarding them. It never just gave me the ability. It never gave me the fun of like, you have a new heart now. Isn't that awesome? It was like, here's a token that you can go to the prize counter and get a prize at. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll get a prize at one day. And then you start collecting them so much. Like, oh, I have 5. Well, I'll wait till I have 8 because there's a shrine over here. Then I'll have 6, and I just need to get 2 more, right? And then there's things like this that was just on screen. This quest. The quests don't mean anything because there's no tangible rewards for them. I just did that quest. I got some money. Money's useless. There's way too much money in this game, and there's nothing to even buy with it anyway. So I would like the return of things like bottles or better upgrades, better equipment through thoughtful side quests. There's not a ton of side quests in this game. There's like 75 or something it said, not including shrine quests or main quests, but make them more thoughtful. Make this very clear, like this is the quest you want to do to get the upgrade to your armor to do XYZ, to get you a new ring that does a certain thing. You'll want to do this side quest, right? There's also the issue of the giant skulls on the map that I don't think are super interesting or have a lot going on in them. And you really could, and I did, for the last 70 hours I played the game, skip them entirely. Just straight up ran past all of them. There's no reason to. There's no piece of heart there. There's no Korok seeds there. There's maybe money, maybe an item I already have, maybe a gemstone that I don't need. So there's no reason to do it. But if I ran into an encampment of bokoblins and I knew that defeating this encampment would get me that much closer to a 5% damage boost to bokoblins or a 5% less likely to see me boost to bokoblins, like something tangible from it. I'm not asking for, oh, I leveled up to level 5. Let me fight more things. Oh, I'm level 6 now. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for these little stat increases along the way that by the end of the game, you can just wreck shop with all these things. Not because you got a better sword necessarily, or you're better at the game necessarily. You would be, so you would be able to fight better, but because you put in the effort to take out all these encampments, the game's just rewarding you. Like, oh, your weapons don't degrade as much when you fight bokoblins because you fought so many before. Stuff like that. That's a tangible reward that I think makes the combat more fun and encourages it. Especially if you start putting things in those chests that are relevant and not garbage. Because they're garbage. You could even make some of those bonuses things like increased damage versus with arrows. Like, oh, well, now I do double damage with arrows if I get a headshot on bokoblins. So I'm going to fight them all like this. And it makes like a fun little challenge to do it with. And the final on the top 5 is more traversal abilities, which I sectioned off from items. And these are just a couple ideas I put here. There's a ton of trees in the game, right? Look at all these trees. What if you could tie a sling around 2 trees, pull yourself back, and launch yourself into the air? So you now have a flying launch, like a catapult. Just an idea. And that'd be an item like a whip that you could still use as a weapon and maybe use to like latch onto things and pull things towards you. There have been whips in the game before in Zelda. I think that's a neat idea. You tie it to both sides of the trees, you launch yourself, boom, new item, traversal is fun there again. And we can also have things like the hook shot, which I think could totally work in a game like this. You can just hook it to anything. Worked for me. I don't see why it wouldn't. There's no real difference. If you can make a stamina potion or you can make you climb anything, there's no reason why you wouldn't. A hook shot isn't necessary. Especially if you could be gliding in the air and use it. Like it slows down time and you shoot it against the wall over there to do like, they could make interesting kind of platforming moments that I like to see that aren't just climbing upward as much as I enjoyed climbing upward in this game. There's also something, there's just spitballing, like a stasis glove where you could stick to things. So now you're climbing upside down on metal or whatever. Just an idea. Like this, let's expand these ideas because I feel like they get there and then they don't do anything with it. Like they have a paraglider, but what if I could rise and fall with the paraglider instead of just falling? Instead, oh, you can, Ben, you can fly. Oh yes, I gotta shoot the floor with a fire arrow, use the weird magical updraft, and then fly again. Like, no, I want an actual mid-air hop with the paraglider where I'm like, whoop. Just interesting things like that. Expand upon it. Expand upon it. Give horse abilities. Give you a flying creature. All these other creatures that you can land and mount in this game. Give me something more with it. Give me the return, while we're here, of Deku Shrubs. The show Scrubs ruined things for me. Mainly pronunciation. I'll whack my head on this. So those are I guess, the top 5 things. They're just 5 things, really. I don't know. Top 5? Who cares? Of what I want to see in Breath of the Wild. 2? No? All right. Because I think there are many ways to improve it. And I think looking at something like this and saying, wow, it does so many things so well. It does. It really does. But that doesn't mean there aren't ways to make it better. And that doesn't mean I'm just shitting on it and I don't like it. Because it's great. But as a longtime Zelda fan, I think there are ways to make it better that would make an even more amazing full game. And I think that's a win-win for all of us. And that's the show. Merry Christmas. Happy birthday. Every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/TheGameFanatics. I stream my own channel, twitch.tv/BenReacts, as I mumble through it all. I stream Mario Maker on Saturday and Monday, and Wednesday I stream whatever I want. Which is usually, well, it was Zelda. So I'll have to find something else. Because I'm done. After 110 hours, I'm done. I also like and kind of forgot that this game is the tits is just in the corner the entire time. I'm cool with it. It is the tits. Alright. Did I say Merry Christmas? I think I already did. Well, Merry Christmas again.